Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this beautiful, really, Friday morning. Hope you're doing well. I have had this theory for a very long time that if you had a home movie of yourself from when you were younger, you probably can see evidence in the child you were of the adult you became. So I wanted to show you with words a little bit of my childhood. Okay, there I am in the schoolyard, Robin. Do you see me? Do you see me in the schoolyard?
Okay.
In your mind's eye?
I'm visualizing.
And you see I'm wearing white sneakers. Do you see me wearing white sneakers?
Oh, okay, they kids.
Okay, I don't know what they are, but they're white. Okay.
All right.
Now, I'm going to come back tomorrow to school, and now you see me again. Do you see me still wearing the same white sneakers?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's fast forward 6 months. I'm still wearing the same white sneakers. You see, every single day I was wearing the same shoes. Every single day, okay? Now, I'm telling you, that may just be because whatever, I don't know, but I think it was because, now I know what I was thinking. I was thinking, I don't want to wear new shoes because as soon as I do, somebody's going to say, oh, you got new shoes. And I don't want that attention. So I'm a guy who is very reluctant to change anything. And this has been my whole life, Robin. Very hard to change anything about me, right?
Yes.
You know me, right? Same shirt
do.
every day, right?
Yeah.
Same. So our next guest is going to help me with this. He's got a book called Elastic: Unlocking Your Brain's Ability to Embrace Change. I need this book, Robin. Leonard Mlodinow, is that how you say his name? Is an award-winning author. He wrote for the original TV series MacGyver. Really?
Yes.
And Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Exactly.
Wow.
He's a famous guy.
All right, so let's find out. Leonard Mlodinow. I hope I'm saying your name close to me, right? Good morning, Leonard. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in L.A. I'm having my coffee.
Oh, there you go.
By the way, I finally got rid of the white sneakers, and now I wear the same shoes every day, but they're not white sneakers anymore. So I did change my shoes.
That's all right, and there's no reason that you need to change unless you're confronted with the necessity. I mean, the change is neither something that is inherently good or evil. It's just something that in today's world we're often forced to deal with.
Well,
so my book is about how you handle that, not about whether you want to.
Okay.
Learn, I'm not arguing that we want change, but if you look at our politics, is changing. The norms of the presidency, our social norms are changing. A lot of them for the good, some of them for the worse.
Yeah.
Your technology is changing. You're dealing with new software and new apps all the time, new devices. The world is changing, whether we want it to or not. If you can still keep those same shoes, that's fine. But when they invent the flying shoes, you may be required to use those. You're never going to get anywhere. So you're going to have to learn how to use them.
Let me take what you just said and use that. I want to tell you something else about Robin and myself. I grew up in New York, and a couple of years ago, Robin and I went to New York, and I wanted to be the big shot and show her how to get around and all that stuff. And it all changed. I mean, you can still call a cab, or you can go on your phone and get an Uber. And I was so reluctant to that little change. But when I did, it was so cool. You go on your phone, and there it is. There's a car.
And that is the amazing thing sometimes, too, that once you give yourself into it and you adapt, you realize, well, this is for the better, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes we do notice that. It's almost like if you go to sleep, like if you were in a coma, and God forbid, but I mean, you woke up 10 years later, you'd have no choice but to deal with change, right?
Right, and you know what? But if you're living your life and you're you're only a figurative coma, and you get behind the time, you might end up left behind and realize that the world's passing you up, and on the business end, you'll end up like Blockbuster, Encyclopedia Britannica, Kodak, Sears. Yeah.
Okay,
these are all companies that when they were in their coma. So the idea is that you have to recognize when change is coming and when it's really important to reframe the questions you ask and to let go of your comfortable ideas and accept new assumptions. And these things, when they first come to you, they often don't look appealing, right? The idea is it's not just that these people didn't know this was happening. They did, but they said, That's never going to work. Britannica looked at Wikipedia. I mean, it's not just putting their stuff online. Wikipedia said we're not going to sell it. We're going to ask people to donate. What business works on donations? Do I go to the grocery store and they say, give what you please?
Right,
They don't.
right.
It was a new business model, but in the new world, it worked.
Right.
And they were unable to accept it enough to even test it out, check it out. Britannica should be Wikipedia today because they had the database, right? Imagine if they had started with that and worked there.
Yeah, that's a great example.
And open sourcing, and another thing that was revolutionary, letting non-experts do it. People said, "Oh, you're going to get BS that way," but guess what? It actually works because they police themselves. So what I realized as a physicist is that that's exactly what happens in physics. Albert Einstein and special relativity, that wasn't a brilliant work of analytical logic and mathematics. It's something that any high school kid today could do if they know algebra. So what was brilliant about special relativity? He saw a different set of assumptions. He was able to say, hey, everyone else is making these old Newtonian, they're stuck in this Newton's thinking, and everyone thought, of course, because that's the law, that's the way it is, just like Britannica did. And he was like Wikipedia, and he said, no, let's see what happens. Let's just investigate another possibility. Let's try it out. And, next thing you know, he revolutionized the world with special relativity. So that happens in business and physics. It happens in art. It is, in those days, the cubists or the abstract artists, and it's happening in business. Today in business, if you're not like that and you don't react and adapt, then you're going to sink like these companies did.
And that's what's wonderful about your book. It's a journey of observations into the different eras and into the different people that were innovators and free thinkers. They weren't afraid to push forward even though they had a few failures.
Right, and I think that's important. That's why I give examples from different areas to show that it's the same kind of thinking. And I talked about the psychology and the neuroscience behind that thinking, but it's the same thinking that is applied in all these different areas. And it's just fascinating to see how it plays itself out in such similar ways in totally different contexts.
So when we're reading the book, I'm trying to make sure I understand it. It sounds like from the business perspective. I mean, we actually broadcast from the local mall, and our window faces Sears, and they took down the sign yesterday, and it's actually empty right now. So I mean, that is a great example. Robin and I were in Walmart one day, and just so you know, we're not young. We're older. Okay. So, and I said to Robin, do you realize there's no young kids in here? I mean, only old people actually shop in stores anymore. And on the side of Walmart, they have this place, and that's where you see the kids. They've got their phones, they've ordered everything, and somebody's bringing it out to them.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. And, so that's such an important skill. And I mean, in your life too, I talk about frozen thinking, which is a term from a political philosopher, Hannah Arendt. And that is a kind of thinking that whereby you go and you never question your assumptions. And in our lives, we often we may be happy, we may be medium happy, we may be very miserable, but very few of us actually question the assumptions behind our lives. Whether do we really need to stay in this job? Is it really not possible to change jobs or careers or spouses if that's not working out?
I do think
that's the scary part.
I do think getting older has an effect on our ability to be willing to change. And I have an example I want to give you. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the TV show Fame. Do you remember that show?
I remember Fame.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, there was a kid who played the keyboards.
You made Larry happy.
Well, you never know how old somebody is you're talking to. So there was a kid on that show who played the keyboards, and then he had the music professor. And the kid was composing music on this newfangled electronic synthesizer. And he was trying to tell the professor, who wanted him to compose on a piano, he said, look, if Beethoven had this, he would have used this. And I remember because I was basically a kid at the time watching that. But now that I'm older, I do the same thing that the professor was doing, being reluctant to embrace the newer things. And meanwhile, the kids, they're using them, right?
Yeah, and that's partly brain-based. Your brain... So a human thinking can be put on a spectrum, and at one end is logical, analytical thinking, reasoning that follows rules to get from A to B to C. So the situation is set up like composing music. The framework is set up. You use this thing, this piano. This is how you do it. This is how we've always done it, right? And that's fine for situations that are unchanging. But the other kind of thinking is elastic thinking at the other end of the spectrum. And elastic thinking is about not following rules, but how you make the rules, how you make the new rules, how you see new situations and how to deal with them. And that kind of thinking is especially powerful in us when we're young. But we have a part of our brain called the executive structures, and those mature when you're about 25. So up till 25, that people are much more open and accepting of change and have new ideas. That's a lot of the best mathematicians and physicists. They do their work like Einstein, by the time they're 25, and then after that, it gets harder. But you can still do it. That's why I wrote the book. If you couldn't change and improve your ability to elastic thinking, then it would have been a dumb idea to just write. I guess the book would have just been a description of you as a static person. But you're not. Your brain is very plastic, and you can rewire it, and you can learn to think more elastically.
But what's really more amazing is that the creators of different things, of those ideas, don't even realize the impact that some of those ideas could have. Look at Pokemon. All of a sudden, Pokemon took off, and who knew that it would be such a huge infatuation for the children?
That's right. So the thing that we can't do is see into the future and see what the reaction is to our ideas or what the impact is going to be. But it's very important not to take that to heart and have a fear of failure. So one of the things I talk about in the book is that how fear of being wrong and fear of failure is anathema to creativity and imagination, because you're censoring. So your mind is on an unconscious level, your mind is a cauldron, a bubbling cauldron of ideas. It's constantly generating new ideas. So many of them that if they all came into your awareness, you'd drown, you'd be paralyzed, you couldn't do anything but hear all the ideas. So your brain has filters that keep most of them out.
Oh, no.
And generally lets through the most useful, conventional ones. It works pretty well in everyday life, right? Where it doesn't work is when you have faced change in new situations. That's when you need new ideas. So you have to learn how to loosen those filters. And one of the things that makes the filters stronger and the filters kill more ideas is this fear of failure. So one exercise that I like to recommend is to think about times where you failed and times where you've been wrong. Don't put those out of your mind, but celebrate them, dwell on them, because that will sink into your brain, and it will make you know that what you think might not be right, and that's a key to having new thoughts.
I'm thinking that's interesting because if again using age as a way to set this up. When I was younger, I had no problem making mistakes. The older I get, the more reluctant I am to do something that I think I might fail at. It's kind of weird. When I was younger, I had no problem. I think I'd get a job and I'd do it, and get fired. I would hate for that to happen now,
Well, there was only you back then, right? And now there's you with other people.
Well, good point. Yeah, more responsibilities. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and you might have a better level job that's more valuable than what you had when you were back then anyway. But we do resist. See, humans all really like change. We have a word called boredom for when things don't change at all. We don't like repetitive rote things. Nobody likes memorizing 100 dates like my son had to do for his history class once, and no one likes being on an assembly line like, I did for a while when I volunteered in Israel during the Yom Kippur War.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, I shaved off one of the end of my finger once because I was so bored on this assembly line that I lost attention to what I was doing. I was doing some metal work.
Not on purpose. Not on purpose. Okay.
No, not on purpose. By just not being able to handle the boredom. So we like novelty, we like change, but we don't like is negative change. Of course not. Like companies complain that people are change averse. They're not change averse. You walk into someone's office and you say, "Hey, we're trying to be more efficient. You got to do 10% more work for the same money, or you got to learn this new methodology, which is going to take a lot of time that you didn't have to know before." People bristle at that. You walk in and say, "We're trying to be less efficient. I want you to work 10 hours less each week for the same salary." No one's going to resist that, right? So when we say people don't like change, they don't like negative change, right? So of course they don't. But people love change, in general, if it doesn't have negative consequences or risks involved. But the question is, how do you adapt your thinking in a way that deals with that and finds the new way? And that's what the book is all about.
And you managed to adapt very well. I mean, gosh, you wrote for the original MacGyver series, which was very analytical. And then you wrote for Star Trek The Next Generation, where you had to be some sort of visionary. But you also, but in both cases, there had to be a human scenario in there with emotion. So you had to tie up a lot of different ways to make those series successful.
You know, I take pride that I'm a theoretical physicist. I've taught at Caltech. I've written for television. I've made computer games. I was an executive in New York at a Fortune 500 company for 6 years. You know, I've bounced around and had a checkered career in different things. And the commonality is it's all based on elastic thinking. So I think that it's just the same kind of thinking in different contexts, that if you master how to think that way, you can apply it anywhere.
Drawing. I'm reading from the Amazon description. It says, drawing on groundbreaking research. How do you say your name? Mlodinow?
Mlodinow, yeah.
Mlodinow.
Mlodinow for those who can't make it out.
Thank you. Yeah, it says here, you outline in the book how we can learn to let go of comfortable ideas and become accustomed to ambiguity and contradiction. Yesterday, Rob and I were talking about a lady we know, and she has lived here for several decades, and she doesn't speak English yet. She still speaks Spanish, and there was a little child in the subway shop we were in, and he was speaking Spanish, and then he spoke English to his mother. And I said, in 4 years, however old this child is, he's mastered 2 languages. You know, if we can learn 2 languages in 4 years, we should be able to learn something. And I'm thinking how uncomfortable it must be to try to learn a new language. I myself am not bilingual. Are you, by chance? I mean, you went to Israel.
I am, yeah. And I speak German.
Oh, really? So, but
I mean, I know a little Hebrew, but I speak German pretty fluently. I lived in Germany for a few years.
But okay, and did you go there and learn after you went there?
I did. Mm-hmm.
So right there, that must have been uncomfortable for you to try to little by little adapt a new language.
It is, yeah, it is, and I was lucky that I had people who were very willing to let me try. You know, I mean, since everyone knows English these days, there's a tendency for people to just speak English too.
Right.
But maybe it was also 30 years ago. People were a little bit maybe less comfortable in English, but it was also fun though. I mean, it was fun. It was an adventure trying to. It was like a game that you play.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you look at it that way, then it takes the bite out of it. And, you know, if you're young enough that you don't have to worry about, I didn't have to worry about being maybe not as efficient because I'm spending too much time trying to communicate.
Since you are such a very good observer, sometimes do you see people that could stand to have a little advice just to get them out of a rut to have the courage to do whatever it is that they really want to do?
Yeah, well, that's why you know, some of these exercises in the book are designed to do that, to help you whatever dimension of elastic thinking that you need help in, whether it's, let's say, exploratory, taking chances. That I recommend that you do certain things and change your lifestyle a little bit to help you become more like that. You know, there's no magic pill, but there are things that you just do on a daily or a weekly basis. Like, for instance, a lot of people live in a cocoon or a bubble. You always interact with the same people who are defined by your job and your neighbors and maybe your kids or people that you've met over the years, and you rarely meet people who are very different from them, right? So it's very good, though, to expose yourself to that, to broaden your horizons.
Oh, yeah.
You're at an airport or at a bus stop or at a bar or even waiting in line at the grocery store. Talk to people, you know, and the more different they are from you, the better, because you get those new perspectives. And even if you disagree, I mean, one other thing is dissent is very good. It's great for your mind to talk to people who think everything you say is BS. Okay, because actually this is very interesting. Studies show that even if you debate something and you don't get convinced at all about what the other person's saying, if they give you a creativity test after that, they'll find that you're more creative because just that battle has opened your mind.
Wow.
So dealing with dissent and people who are different is great. Go to a restaurant. I go to a restaurant. I don't say what's popular. I say what's unpopular. What's your strangest dish here? I want to try it.
Oh, no. I'd have a hard time with that one.
Well, then, if you have a hard time with that one, you should do it. And just remember, don't fear failure. You might have a great new discovery, or you might think that the dish is pretty bad.
You know what?
Even if it's bad, you know what? You're growing your mind. So even if the dish is bad, it is medicine for you.
Yeah, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be those little red crustaceans at the Chinese restaurant. I don't think I want that. I don't know. It's going to be hard. The book is called Elastic, Unlocking Your Brain's Ability to Embrace Change. Leonard Mlodinow, I hope I did it right that time, is the author and our guest. And I wanted to, if we could address the folks out there that in their daily lives something has changed. Maybe a spouse has died. Maybe they're divorced. Maybe they just got back from being in the service, or maybe they just moved here. This is a transient area here where we live. How will this book help? Let's focus on one of them, the divorced person. Not divorced. Well, yeah, the divorced or the widowed person, because they maybe are still holding on to something that is impossible to hold on to because the person's gone.
Right. So you have to do is, you have to work on taking chances. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of being wrong. Meeting new people. Don't worry about whether the new people you meet are going to work out or not. You just got to get out and do it. You have to let go of the old assumptions of your life. You lived a certain way. You may have been very happy, and now it's time to change your assumptions. So go look back at those assumptions and say, okay, those were good assumptions for then. What are my assumptions now? What's the basis for the new basis for my life? Because I can build a new life and I can be happy again. And if you just talk to people who've been through those things, years later, they've usually created a new life and they're happy again. And you can get through that too if you're not afraid and if you're bold and you're exploratory. And so, in my book, the parts of the book that talk about neophilia and exploratory behavior and mindfulness, which has to do with looking inward and understanding what makes you tick and what your assumptions are and what's driving you. If you work on that, then you can get through it.
When I went through a divorce a long time ago, so it's the 1990. How long ago was that, Rob? 30 something years ago. But when it happened, it was just a hard thing for me to do because I didn't want it, and my wife wanted to get out of the marriage and everything. And then I had a friend say to me, there are 3 billion women in the world that you now can ask out. I thought, whoa, you're right. Wow, yeah. I mean, that was an eye opener right there. Just that kind of a thought.
See, that's a different kind of thinking, right? Exactly.
And that's another part of the book you bring out, Mary Shelley. I mean, gosh, she wrote Frankenstein, and it was unheard of back then for a woman to be an author. They usually had to take upon a man's pseudonym in order to get published.
Right, and in fact, the whole example of how she came up with that was a great example of elastic thinking. Because she and her boyfriend and some other friends were in Switzerland on vacation, and at night, there wasn't cable TV to watch or games to play. They were taking turns making up stories, ghost stories, and she couldn't think of one, and she thought really hard, and she couldn't come up with one. And then she realized you have to relax your mind at some point. You have to just let go, and she did that. She laid in bed, let go of all her worries and her effort to do this, and then bam, Frankenstein popped into her mind.
Oh wow, I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
Leonard, thank you for being on the air with us today. I found the book on Amazon. Do you have a different website you'd like to direct us to?
There's my website, which is my name, LeonardMlodinow.com, and my Twitter at LMLODINOW, or Instagram. So I look forward to hearing from people.
Oh my gosh, excellent! I love the conversation. I think I'm going to get some new shoes. Thank you, Leonard. That was fun.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Looks like some nice weather this weekend. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds on this Friday. It'll warm to between 67 and 71 for a high this afternoon. Then mainly clear Friday night.